Hey, what's up? Sobel Sunday, the debut #1. How you guys doing? I'm just chilling here. It is noon Pacific Standard Time in Los Angeles, and I'm ready to talk to you guys in the chat. This is kind of an exciting thing. I know this technology, it's been around for a while. Obviously, we've all seen and done things like this, but for me, it's cool. It's my YouTube channel. I've had this channel for over 10 years, but this is the first time I'm doing the live stream off of YouTube. Boy, I can see my hair is a little long looking back at this. Going to be like Tommy Henriksen doing my hair in the Instagram, right? So I see some people logging on and saying, hey, let's see what you guys are saying. Hey, Bruce. Hey, everybody. What's up? Hey, Lily. All right. Hey, from Costa Rica. All right. This is amazing. We've got about 26 people going live. And anybody that doesn't see this now, well, it all gets archived. Great hair indeed. Yeah, thanks. Oh, my God. Is it getting long? Jesus. So what's going on, people? How's everybody doing? I'll tell you what I got. I've got what I call the little mini muffled 3-piece kit back here. In case there's any actual playing questions, the question I'm going to have is, how does it sound? How does it translate over the YouTube like this? I've been experimenting, did a couple of beta tests just to check microphone levels. I got this Samson external mic. It's great, and it definitely improved the sound. My laptop it's a little bit old, so the internal mic on the laptop, it's kind of, but what's going on? Is there any questions out there? I see a lot of people saying, hey, from Vancouver, from Chattanooga. This is great. Glenn, how did you land the gig with Impellitteri? Well, that was one of my first gigs. Chris Impellitteri, an amazing guitar player, definitely coming from the shred era. That was my first actual tour. I went to Japan with Impellitteri back in '95. If you're not familiar with that group, it's not instrumental. There is a singer. It was mostly Rob Rock, one of the best voices in metal. And at the time, when I first heard that he was looking for a drummer, I think it was '94, and grunge was just huge back then, and I was a little hesitant to check it out. I thought, well, how much work is there? I'm thinking in terms of United States. How much work is there for a group that's got the shredding guitar and the metal thing? That was really that was on the downhill back then. But then I was in a record store, Tower Records, and I saw a copy of Young Guitar. That's the Japanese guitar mag that they would import to places like Tower Records out here. And there was Chris right on the cover. So I said, oh my God, he does really great in Japan. I should check this out. This could be fun. And it worked out. I did a few records with him, definitely a few tours. And I still get people all over the world coming up with CDs of that to sign. So that's nice to know that there's people out there that are watching. Let's see who else we got here. How did I meet Tommy? Bruce wants to know that. Well, how did I meet Tommy? I should get him in here for one of these live streams one of these days. Can you imagine both of us sitting here going back and forth? Maybe I'll do that if I do this from the road one of the days. I'm going to try and do this most Sundays. But Tommy I met almost 30 years ago. I met him at this jam night that he was a part of. He was in this group called Rat Salad. And they would play like every week at this one bowling place. And they were playing at a little club down the street from me called The Rock. And it was Tommy, and it was James Kotak on drums, and Rick from Kingdom Come was on guitar. And I got up to jam with those guys. One of my best friends, Dan, had already met Tommy. And I think he introduced me to him briefly. I got up to play, and we did a ZZ Top song, LaGrange or Tush, one of those. And that was the first time we ever played. I believe that was like 1990 or 91. And then we started playing in a band together 96, and the rest is history. Tommy became a producer. He started getting me on sessions. It's the producers that hire the session players. That's definitely something we could talk about. Oh my God, so many people. Hard to keep up. Yeah, both of us would be amazing. I'll tell you that there's a lot of dates, tour dates that just got announced. It's pretty exciting. There's Alice. The dates that just got announced with that was our summer run with Hailstorm, and then special guest Motionless in White. That's a band. I can't say I know a lot about them, Motionless, but there have definitely been a few students of mine that are fans of that band. So I'm going to do my research, see what they're all about. I think I've heard a little bit. Sounds killer. Sounds like some great players in the band. And this should be an interesting, different crowd this time around, just because there is Hailstorm. They're on modern rock radio all the time. I think there'll be a lot of younger fans that show up that are aware of Alice Cooper, but have never seen a show and are going to stick around out of curiosity. And so we're just going to be firing on all cylinders for that show. I can't wait. And then also there was Hollywood Vampires that got announced. Right now, it's just 7 shows in May. There could be more this year. It's just that between those 3 guys, you got Johnny Depp, Joe Perry, Alice, all 3 of those guys to get their schedules to line up to schedule shows. Well, that's like making heaven and earth move. So I was glad to see these 7 so far, but there's a Los Angeles date at the Greek Theater. There's Vegas, Denver, Albuquerque, San Francisco, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Indio, which is down by Palm Springs. That should be fun. Any possibility of Beautiful Creatures reuniting? You know, I would be all for that. And it's been mentioned. That was a band that I was in 2001. We were on Warner Brothers Records. It was the big record deal, big budget. And it was sort of like the potential dream come true, but things didn't work out ultimately. I mean, the plug got pulled, but not until we had sold some records and we played on Ozfest, did a fair amount of touring and built up a little fan base. That's another record I'm really proud of, and people will come up all around the world with that CD and ask me to sign it, or posters, whatever. At the NAMM show, the music industry trade show back in January, I was hanging out with DJ Ashba. He was on guitar, lead guitarist, who I go way back with, and Kenny Queens, bass player. And it came up. It has come up at different times the last couple years. I'd be all for doing like an LA, a Vegas show, something like that. Maybe you guys can help make that happen. That was a really great time. It was seriously a learning experience. As far as the politics of the music business, it was a crash course that I really don't see how you could learn that kind of thing in school, like in music business school. That's valuable. It's got its value, but to actually go through a record deal like that and go through the process of finding a new manager and hearing about the recording budgets, this is the kind of stuff we can definitely talk about. It doesn't have to be all strictly drum related. Who else we got here in the chat? What's the best way to improve independence of all limbs? You're my favorite drummer, and why I started playing as a midlife crisis. I assume you mean midlife crisis, but that's really nice of you to say that. There are some drummers out there that are doing some extreme independence. It basically means your limbs are able to work independent of one another. You don't have to take it to that extreme, but you do want to get with a good teacher. They could lead you through something like, well, the Ted Reed book. How many people out there know this book? It's called Syncopation by a guy named Ted Reed. This book came out in the late 50s, early 60s, but it was very basic reading text. It was also an important book for learning how to read music, musical notation, which is a huge thing for me. That's something I always try to impress on any drum students of mine, whether it's a private lesson or a drum clinic, the importance of reading music, because that's what is going to help you get gigs and retain information regarding the parts of a song. You'll know what an eighth note is, a triplet, a quarter note triplet. Anyways, you read the notation in that. You could have a template going, what I call a template, where you're playing like a hi-hat snare. You know, you got like a dot. The snare is on 2 and 4. And then maybe you read the text with your right foot. That was always a good reading and independence exercise. That's one of many things that you could do, but it's practical. You're reading, you're working on independence, but you're doing something that's like, it's going to have some value in the real world. You could work on playing septuplets with your right hand and quintuplets with your left, quarter note triplets with your right. I'm all for it, but at the end of the day, sometimes that's just a real extreme sort of impressive exercise. But get with a good teacher. They'll have some good insight for that. Let's see. Vampires, when to Moscow? We were just in Moscow. Come on, give some other people a chance to get us there. But yeah, it was great. Russia, love playing there. Some of the best rock fans. They're so very appreciative and loud. Great times. But hopefully back to Moscow soon. Goon Squad coming to Germany. It's Lily. You know, we got dates coming in Germany. Alice Cooper shows. I saw a bunch in the late summer, early fall. Maybe if there's some nights off, you never know. Some of those things get announced last minute. Goon Squad, I think it was Ryan Roxy that titled our little side band Glen Sobel and the Goon Squad, which is funny because I'm the only guy that doesn't sing lead on those gigs, although you never know, that could change. But we play gigs sometimes on nights off. We get booked into local venues in whatever city we're in for the next show. And we play some of our favorite covers. All the guys take turns singing lead. We play originals like from Tommy, Ryan, and Chuck. They're a good time. Can't argue with that. So who else is out there? A lot of people on today. Let's see. I can't get to all these because they're coming in hot, coming in heavy here. How good, bad were you at keeping the tempo before playing the drums? Well, boy, that's a good one. I haven't even thought about that. Keeping time, is it natural? Yeah, it's also something that's learned. It's both. So, of course, when you start playing any instrument, your sense of timing and your awareness, it's going to improve. But then at some point, somebody introduced the idea of practicing with a metronome. Boy, do I talk about that a lot with students. Practicing on the drum pad with a metronome and on the drum set. It's something that you should do every day. And now there's metronome apps that you could get on your iPhone and just plug right in. I like having a powered monitor speaker that I can run my phone or a drum machine through, but it's just something that is required of a drummer to have really good time and being able to play along with a metronome with the band. In fact, so many shows that you see the drummers doing that. They've got this click thing going in their in-ear monitor, which I do that on the Alice gig on some songs. It's definitely something we can talk more about. How did you get to play drums? I mean, who was your inspiration? That's from Angela. So many, but I think before I was a drummer, it's a really typical answer is that I was really into Rush. And I say typical because you ask any drummer that question, and more than half of them are going to say Rush was at least in part an inspiration for them to want to play. There was Rush, and then there was Led Zeppelin. I got into Rush because my friend's older brother across the street had one of their live records, Exit Stage Left, and that had a drum solo, a song called YYZ. And I heard that, and my friend's older brother was like, check this out, man. This is awesome. The guy does a drum solo. And I'm listening to this like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I think I might want to play drums. And long story short, I did get to play drums through a beginning music class in junior high where everybody wanted to play drums. Every guy wanted to play drums. Couldn't have that. They had to have people on trumpet and trombone. Boring, but they had us pick numbers out of a hat. And whoever got the lucky number, who picked it, got to play drums. And there were 2 numbers left, and me and one other kid left, and I picked the right number. Otherwise, I would have been stuck on something dumb like trombone, But no, I'm kidding. Trombone is a cool instrument. I've definitely played with some very nice trombone players, and they are a very integral part of any horn section. So let's see. Can you run through your drum set warm-up and stretch? Well, stretching, that's almost more important than warming up with the sticks these days. I like to do that. I like to stretch before an Alice show. I don't always do it as much before some of the more mellow local gigs around here in Los Angeles, but it's something, I'll do this stuff for a while. I'll move around maybe 4 or 5 minutes, get the blood flowing. I'll maybe do the door stretch where you get in a door and you stretch the delts and the pec muscles, and the rib cage gets all stretched out. And there's a few other things to stretch the neck and the back. And I'll sit on the pad kit in the dressing room, playing on the DW pad kit. Those are great. They're nice and portable, and they're not too expensive, and they're easy to just put in the road case. But I like doing some kind of routine when it comes to warming up. Just something to get the blood flowing. You know, even it could be something like this where you do this old trick. I don't know if you can hear that. You get black and blue arms from doing it, but it's something. I was just doing that last night on this short gig I had. I played at a benefit last night. I played with Chris Wise, Hollywood Vampires bandmate. We had a good time. It was at the W Hotel in Hollywood. It was a benefit for the Westmark School. Sebastian Bach was there. He sang Don't Stop Believin'. It sounded great. And he did 18 in Life. Nick Hexum from 311, the guitar player, he was there. And it was all for a really nice cause. It was a good hang. And I was doing that thing, that warm-up thing, because I didn't have a drum pad with me, so I was backstage doing this before going on. Good times. Who else we got here? What do you hear in your in-ear monitor on stage? That's from Bruce. In-ear monitors, for people that don't know what that is, it's something where they take a mold of your inner ear. And the way they did it, at least a few years ago, they had this thing that looks like a turkey baster, and they inject clay into your ear, and it sits there for a few minutes, and they pull it out, and they have a mold of your inner ear, and then they make your in-ear monitors based on that mold. And then so when you put them in, it's completely closed off from all outside noise. You hear everything like it's in your brain, man. It's a trip the first time you do it, but it's pretty much industry standard. What I'm hearing in there, of course, a lot of me, a lot of kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, little bit of overheads. And I try to not get too much. I don't want to overdo it. If you crowd out that monitor mix, whether you're on in-ears or just regular wedges on stage, I don't know, it kind of can get distorted. It can be too much. I definitely have a lot of Tommy. He's starting songs a lot of the time. Ryan is starting songs. Just enough bass to be able to feel it. I mean, they're not that far away a lot of the time. If the bass cabinet is right next to you, you don't need a ton of bass. You could hear it. You could feel it enough. But the cool thing about what we do and a lot of bands do is each song can be a different mix. Our monitor guy's job is to keep track of those, and he could take sort of a snapshot of each mix, and the board can be automated where you see all the faders move when the next song comes up. So, and it's a work in progress. We figure it out as we go. We tell our monitor guy what to adjust, especially in the beginning of a tour, or if we're in rehearsals. It seems like these days we rehearse less and less when there's a new leg of tour. I think last time we got back out in like August, we didn't have any rehearsal. We hadn't played since maybe February, March, and here we are in August, and we played a show. Zero rehearsal. I don't even think we could sound check. It was just do your homework, get back into the swing of things, play a show. But that's rock and roll. Hello from Australia. Oh, hey, what's up? Mike Miller's in Australia. I thought you were working. You're working with Slayer. I thought you had to get things on stage. That's my drum tech, Mike. He's right now at Download Festival in Melbourne, I think. And he's been on the Slayer gig. He's working for Paul Bostaph, one of the more amazing metal drummers out there, playing in legendary gig. So, hey, get back to work, Mike. What snare drum heads do you recommend? Well, I'm an Evans guy, and you know, I wouldn't endorse a product if it wasn't for good reason. You got to like the product. You got to love the product. Evans, it has really been consistent with their heads. And I use ST, that snare head, a lot of the time. And now they've also been making an ST with a white dot underneath, which right now that's a prototype. But I would like that to be something that they actually market. I believe it's something that fills a void. That kind of the thinness of that head, but with the white dot underneath. Because without the dot, I'll tell you what that dot adds. It doesn't just add durability. The problem with the ST that I was having is if I'm playing an entire Alice Cooper show, it's 95, 100 minutes, somewhere halfway or maybe a third of the way through the show, that ST head, playing it so hard, it starts to soften up a bit. And you have to maybe keep tuning it. with the tuning key, but there's just not a lot of time on an Alice show. Alice is not talking between songs. He doesn't break character. There's not a lot of time to grab a tuning key and kind of spruce up the head. So it gets kind of what I call soggy, and it gets harder to play. And with the dot underneath on the Evans ST with the dot, we got to come up with a name for that. But on that prototype head, the dot adds low end to the drum head and to the drum overall. So we can crank the head tighter without the pitch and tone of the snare getting too high. A guy like Tommy, he'll always be the first one to say, dude, the snare tuning, it's too high. He's hearing it in his in-ears. He's got the kick snare nice and loud. Too much, too high. So we'd have to bring it back down, but then it would get hard to play with the regular ST. So with the dot, it adds low end. You can crank it a little tighter, still retain the low end. So that's why I like those drum heads. The bass drum heads, those G-mads and E-mads, they're going to make your bass drum sound amazing. They're going to just make it just have this great amount of low end punch. E-mad would be externally mounted adjustable dampening. And it comes with something, it's a ring where you could put this foam ring in it, 2 different sizes, or you could do it without the foam ring. You could pull it out. It works either way. It's a very versatile rock bass drum head. Who else we got? If I'm missing your guys' questions, you can go ahead and ask them again. Hey, Rich Aronin, get back to work, Michael. Yeah, exactly. Who else we got? Want to make sure and get to some questions for people I haven't talked to yet. Hello from Italy. Hey, can I say something in German? I don't know much German. Guten Tag. That might be it. I know that a drummer is a Schlagzeuger. Did I say that right? Did I pronounce it correctly? Who else we got here? Tips for an aging drummer. Are you an aging drummer, Bruce? Eat your Wheaties, or just eat your good calories. Everyone's talking today about carbohydrates like they're bad. You want to avoid the carbohydrates. You want the good carbs, oatmeal, things like that. I try to have that every day. That's what you need. It's energy to play a show, or to do a workout and play a show in the same day, workout and practice. You want to help you play the show and say, oh, that was my cardio for the day. That was my workout. You got to stay in shape overall. Some people, they go for a walk on tour, a jog, a walk. I like to do the treadmill. We're lucky enough, we get into hotels where there's a decent gym most of the time. I like to do the treadmill, do a little tiny bit of weights, not too much on a show day. But when I do that, I feel more warmed up for the show later that night. It definitely helps. Greetings from Athens, Greece. Nice. Your Hot for Teacher performance from a clinic is possibly the best I have seen on YouTube. What's your footing on the double bass, alternate or something else? Well, thanks for that, from Greece. That was at a drum festival called Drum Days that was held by a great store called Columbus Pro Percussion in Columbus, Ohio. And what I'm doing on that, actually, this would be a good time to test how this sounds back here. I want your feedback. Tell me if anything on the drums sounds a little overdriven or distorted, because remember, this is the first live chat. So I've been playing with microphone levels, and maybe I'll turn this down just a little bit for the drums. But yeah, that's a pattern called the Herta. I've seen it spelled Herta, but here, I'll get on the drums on my mini muffled 3-piece kit here. So a Herta, you want to learn this with your hands first. And you've heard this lick played. It's been around for a long time. It's something like this. It's all single strokes. Now, the trick is you want to be able to play this on double bass. to me, it's a psychological thing in some ways. What is the right hand playing when I'm doing that pattern? Listen. See, the right hand is playing. So you have to be able to play that with your right foot. And then you could build it up from there, slowly adding in the left foot. And to me, I'm thinking of this as three-stroke roughs also. A three-stroke rough is simply just right, left, right. Or left, right, left. Want to gradually increase the tempo. Anyways, you know what I realized? That is not the first thing you want to do right after waking up. Oh my God, got to be warmed up for Hot for Teacher. But okay, was that legible? Let's see. How does it sound sonically? Was it distorting? That's a question I got. Let's see. Anybody? Everything sounds amazing. Well, thank you. I'm just curious if it's distorting at all. Oh, you guys are going too fast here. Let me see. Getting gigs, how to pass that bridge from being a good local musician to better paid gigs and bigger tours. I will get to that. That's a good question. Anybody? Just trying to find out if, what are you saying, George? You said no. Is that no, it's not distorting? Snare was distorting. The rest wasn't too bad. Okay, I got it pretty muffled, so maybe I have to go a little further with how much it's muffled. Hi-hat sounded okay. Snare was distorting. Yeah, okay, there's somebody else. This is a work in progress. Do you have any rituals to be observed before going on stage? Yeah, definitely the stretching, eating a yogurt. I try to do that. Something, just some kind of protein, some kind of calories to take me through the show. Playing for Alice, it's very nonstop. It's very athletic. The stretching, warming up on the practice pad kit. How long have you been the drummer of Alice Cooper? And how to get to play Complicated Independence from France. Nice. Okay, and there's another, snare is distorted. Okay, this is good to know. You guys are being my tech support, basically. Very good to know. Sounded pretty good. Thanks, Brittany. All right. But, Brittany, people are saying the snare is distorting just a little bit. Favorite song? Oh, God, so many. My favorite song to play, favorite song of all time. Such a tough question. There's too many. Those questions are hard because you're afraid you're going to leave out something really good, right? Mike is here. Mike Beeson. Hey, what's up, man? Hi, Glenn. While playing or soloing in an odd time with a band like Cosmo Squad, for example, how do you keep from losing your place? Feel, counting, or both? That's an excellent question. Cosmo Squad, that's a fun band. That's Jeff Coleman on guitar, who has played also with Chad Smith, the Chili Peppers drummer. They have a group called the Bombastic Meat Bats. Jeff is a very underrated guitar player. It's been a while since I've actually played with him. The regular drummer in Cosmo Squad for forever since they were started. That's Shane Gallus. He's just a kick-ass player, lives out here in LA, known him a long time. Odd times, for me, let me grab the sticks. For me, the question is it counting, feel? It could be all that. Let's say it's in 7/8. This is the time signature that people go to first, usually when they're getting into odd time. I like to use what I call the long count, short count system. I'm not counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. And some people like to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That can work, but I like to do this system where you're using 4. You're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, except the last bit of it, that 4 is treated more like a dotted eighth. I'm getting really super into it now, but I'll play it for you. It would be something like this. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hear that? To me, that's a lot easier to play a groove over and to solo over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll tell you what, Mike, you could ask that question again. Maybe next time I'll have something set up with like a little speaker in here, and I could show you how I have things like that programmed. Like 5, for instance, playing 5, 4, 5, 8. Same idea, counting with that system of 4, counting up to 4. Well, how do you do that when you're in 5? The answer is Mission Impossible. Think of that theme song. How that goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's basically, in short, how I approach odd time. A lot of questions I'm missing. Looking forward to Game of Thrones new season. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. One of the creators of Game of Thrones, D.B. Weiss, I think, maybe somebody's going to correct me on the name, but that guy actually got up to play with us at my residency gig about 5 weeks ago. We had Nuno Betancourt in to play a whole set. It was a blast. He brought in Steve Vai and Tom Morello, and it was this really eclectic set list. With Steve Vai, we did a song by 70s soft rock band Bread. We did Guitar Man, and Vai soloed over the end. It was killer. And then we also did My Generation with Vai, and with Tom Morello, we did Beastie Boys, Sabotage, and Morello was doing those record scratching things behind the guitar. It was a pretty magical night. And then we did Wrathchild by Iron Maiden. Nuno wanted to do that. I'm like, oh, well, I always wanted to learn that and play that song. Perfect. So Tom Morello was on guitar on that. And then also this guy, D.B. Weiss. I think I'm saying his name right. But the dude is a really good guitar player and is way into metal and rock. And that was cool that he joined us. So when will the Vampires album come out? Boy, been hearing that a lot, but I'm glad that there's so much interest in that. Don't worry. This is not like Chinese Democracy, which is the Guns N' Roses record that took forever and a day to finally be released. That was like a 15-year thing. I'm hearing June. Do I have a release date? Not yet, but I have the record. I was cranking it on my way home last night from Hollywood, cranking it in the car, giving it the car test. Because what sounds better than playing something in your car when you're surrounded by all the speakers? June is what I'm hearing. I would think it would be coming out around that time, spring, late spring, because we got those tour dates. So stay tuned on that one coming up. Let's see what else. Bruce's wife, Gail, here. Hey, Gail. How old were you when you started playing, and what made you decide you wanted to be a drummer? When I first actually started in that class in middle school, I was 11, which today that's late for some people. I mean, there's like 4-year-olds ripping on YouTube. You see that kid? Amazing. But I was 11. I didn't get a drum set till I was almost 13. It took a little bit of time. I started on the pad, reading notes, quarter notes, and then I had to prove that I deserved a drum set. I think that was a good way to go about it. But I started hearing Rush and Led Zeppelin. That made me really want to play. And the cool kids, they were playing guitar and drums. And I guess I wanted to be cool. But I was just really attracted to the physical and sonic aspect of drumming. It was to me, it was instantly this thing that grabbed my attention. Who knows why? We never know why, but here I am today, right? So how do you play, if you can tell me, the intro to Feed My Frankenstein? There's a couple of hits on the snare that sets up the crash that follows. You hit the crash up and down. Oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the cymbal choke stuff. This is a song that I get asked about a lot. Definitely. Can I do that on this drum set? Maybe. I've only got that one real dry ride cymbal set up, and I know that the snare is distorting. So let me see. Has Orianthi left to Alice? No, well, she left back in 2014 to focus on what she was doing with Richie Sambora and do some of her solo stuff, which I did play with her and Richie on a lot of that. That was a good time. And then Ori joined us for a short set at the NAMM show back in January. Yeah, talk to her all the time. She's doing good. But yeah, this Feed My Frankenstein thing. Let me see. I'm going to attempt to do what you're asking about. Let's see. I mean, it's a cymbal choke thing. It started years ago. It's something I did by accident, and I'll try to go easy on the snare for now. But it has to do with hitting a crash, hitting the hi-hat, and then choking the crash and closing the hi-hat at the same time, like that. And maybe hitting the bass drum too. I'm hitting the snare lighter, can you tell? And it grew into more variations. That's the thing I do. I figure out a lick. I don't just stop there. It could be this thing that goes on for years where I keep thinking of a new way to apply it, a new thing to do. And so with that, the first way I did it was, and it's something that happened by accident. That's another thing, is you stumble on things, hopefully, and you have these moments where you just discover something that you weren't even trying to do. You have to be paying attention to yourself when you do that. But yeah, from there, I thought, well, how can I make that phrase longer? I can't do 2 crashes, grab those, and then that was too much. I thought, well, I got to hit the same crash twice. How do I do that? I thought, well, one has to be up and one has to be down. And again, I just got this dry ride cymbal here, but I'm doing my best. It turned into this 5-count phrase. Like, it started as a 3-count, or 4-count rather. 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought, well, how about a 5-count phrase? And from there, it just grew. It turned into a 6-count phrase, 8, 9, and who knows? I'll keep I'll keep figuring things out. That's just what I like to do. I don't want to ever just stop at one thing. Yeah, that's the right one. Thanks, Jason. That's very nice of you to ask. So rad. My fave groove you do. Snare sounds good to me. Well, okay, good. I was hitting the snare way lighter that time. For the next live stream next week, I'll just have to dampen that snare up more. That was probably the drum I figured would kind of overdrive the microphone more than anything, because the snare is just such a high-end loud thing. But yeah, this is what we do. We figure it out as we go. Who else we got? What about Poison? Can you play it, please? That is one of my favorite Alice songs to play. Absolutely. Hey, Joey, what's up? My buddy Joey, we go way back. Well, Poison, there's nothing that's really technically difficult about the song. It's just a thing where you got to get that same kind of heavy feel. The drummer on that record, actually on the Trash record, that's Bobby Chouinard. That's the guy that played on most of those Billy Squier hits from way back. He was a killer drummer, total John Bonham influence kind of guy, had that feel. Like, think about some of those Billy Squier hits, like In the Dark, right? Or The Stroke. That's all Bobby Chouinard. Unfortunately, he died years ago, but Alice remembers him well and definitely speaks highly of him. So I try to channel that. The tempos, maybe it could be a slight bit higher than the record when we play live. That's just typical for a lot of live bands. But let's see, what's unique about Poison? Not that I have the same kind of kit here, but it starts out. That's basically the intro, and it's a song where there's a lot of opportunity to get a lot of that in, because it's like a quarter note hi-hat. The Alice Cooper gig, it's acceptable to do that sort of showmanship. Like if I'm playing with somebody like Richie Sambora, I'm not really doing this stuff. It doesn't fit. It has to fit on the gig. But yeah, the song Poison, it's definitely a fun song to play. And you guys could keep giving me feedback back on the sonics, how the drums are sounding. Who else do we have here? Eye protection. No, I don't wear special glasses. Ear protection for sure. Given the transition from a local good player to a bigger tour, paid situation. Oh, Glenn, okay. I see what you're asking. Yeah, this is a really good question. I think this has to do with the difference between playing something that would be maybe club level or even playing cover gigs at a bar. The first thing that comes to mind with that question, they're asking about how somebody might transition from that local level to maybe a touring act, like a next step up, an original band that's out playing clubs and maybe bigger venues where the focus is the band. A lot of times you play a cover gig at a bar, it's almost like there happens to be a band there and people are having conversations with each other and the band is in the background. Well, what happens in that case a lot of the time? The owner of the place or the manager is telling the band, keep it down, you guys are too loud, right? There's people trying to eat. But the band is saying, yeah, but we're playing like Zeppelin and we're playing Black Crowes and Green Day, and that's all loud stuff. How do we keep that down? It's this war of how do you make it fun and groove and just make it rock when you have to worry about somebody eating their hamburger 10 feet away from you, right? You play in an original band, let's say Los Angeles, you're playing the Roxy, the Whiskey. There's not a volume restriction other than the limits of the PA system. You don't want to kill people with volume, but what I'm getting at is something I've talked to a lot of students about. Drummers have to work on playing loud. It sounds really counterintuitive in a way, but it's true. A drummer can spend years playing in one of those cover bands that does the bars, the sort of small clubs, and you get used to playing at one volume. But then they go to audition maybe for some original band that's going out on a tour. They might be able to learn the songs really well, but the problem is maybe that they don't have enough wattage, enough volume, that just big mojo in their playing because, well, they haven't had to do that on the gig. It's something where you don't use it, you lose it. So how do you fix that, right? You can practice, but that's not always easy to just be by yourself in a practice room and trying to work on your overall volume. It's like you need the situation around you. I would say, if possible, join some local original band that wants to rehearse a lot, and you're going to find that you're playing your slam and groove chops, I call them. It's going to improve. I would think it would. If that band is playing some local gigs that are in clubs where the focus is the music, the number one focus, your volume, it's going to get better. You're going to be able to control your dynamic levels a lot better, meaning that includes that high end, not just the low dynamics. You have to work on playing soft and mid-tempo, all of it. But there's just certain drummers, they get so used to being told they're just loud all the time, it makes you timid. So you might not be getting paid to play in this original band, but you're doing it for other reasons. You're improving as a player. You sometimes have to think about it in those terms. So who else we got in the chat? Did Tommy Lee give you $50,000 for taking over his gig for a couple of weeks? Oh, it's Rich. What's up, Rich? Well, it was a week of shows that I subbed for Tommy Lee and Motley Crue back in 2015. And we worked out a good deal. There's a saving the day kind of rate that we arrived at. But I tell you, they were nothing but cool. All the guys in the band in Motley Crue. And they handled it amazing. And I ended up doing 5 shows where I did double duty, played the Alice set for an hour, and then the Motley set for about an hour 45. That was a good time. It was a crazy week. I definitely had a masseuse come down once or twice that week to give me the deep tissue massage. And it was just a question of being able to stay warmed up throughout the entire night, even that half-hour break between bands. So who else do we have? How often do you break a stick? Sometimes think that I could feel the stick when it's gonna break. You start to feel it vibrating, or it just feels a little lighter in some way at the front end of it. So I like to put them down before they break. They look really like chopped up, and the middle is all chopped up with sawdust on the floor. I've gotten better at sensing when they're going to break. But yeah, it happens. But you know what? If you break a stick, if you drop a stick, you got to have your stick bag. Drummers, listen to me. Bring your stick bag to all gigs. The reason is you hang it on your floor tom, right? Get the Humes and Berg stick bag because it has the thing where you can easily hang it on the floor tom. It's got these straps. They're like Velcro. You wrap it around the lug. I did this just last night. You wrap it around the lugs on each side. If you drop or break a stick, just boom, you grab another right there. On the Alice kit, I got floor toms on each side. I got stick bags on each side. So I may break or drop a stick, and you won't even know it because I'm just grabbing another. The idea is the audience doesn't even see it, right? Can you show the technique you hold and use drumsticks because you can play so fast? I've been wondering how to do that since I saw you last summer. Well, that's very nice of you. Technique, there have been some people that have questions about how I hold the stick. I'm not someone that considers myself a super authority on this because I have what works for me. I have the things that work that might not work for other people. I don't know, but I generally try to hold the stick at the fulcrum, which is the balancing point of the stick, although there's exceptions to that. Sometimes you pull back on the stick, you get a fatter sound out of the drums and the cymbals. And if you want lesser of a sound, not so heavy-handed, you choke up a little bit. That especially works well on the ride cymbal bell. But when I'm playing heavy, if you're playing hard, Your grip, I think, should be pretty loose. If I'm playing backbeats, slamming out really hard, there's like room for another stick in there almost. But when you go to playing more rudimental, from this to double strokes, you get into doubles, all of a sudden that grip, it has to tighten up because now you need more control on the stick. And again, it's something you should get with a good teacher if you're able to. I know not everybody lives in an area where they have access to a good private teacher in person, but there's ways around that. You can get with people through Skype, whatever. It's amazing the technology we have for that nowadays. Who else do we have? I broke Alice's cane. I did that once. It's in a video, yeah. Let's see. Roxy says, hey, of course, Mr. Roxy. We'll be back on tour soon. I can't believe it. Like, tour is maybe, what is today, March 10th? Yeah, I think we got our first show with Alice. We have this festival in Mexico City. It's this festival that we're doing with Kiss and a bunch of other bands. I think it's called Domination MX. Looking forward to that. That'll be great. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Would Hollywood Vampires ever do a Canadian tour? I hope we get there. I don't think the Vampires have done any shows there except for one show we did as a warm-up gig last May. We played at the Casino Rama in Orillia, Ontario. That's a venue we've done a lot with Alice. Great place. But other than that, we haven't done any other Canada. I hope we do. I want to go everywhere with either Alice or the Vampires. How important is the city where you live in terms of getting auditions and all that? Los Angeles versus New York. Yeah. When it comes to that, a hired gun session player versus like an original artist, an original band, that's an excellent question. You have to be where the action is. It's not just Los Angeles or New York. There's a lot of cities in America. It could be Nashville, obviously, Austin, Texas. I know working musicians in Baltimore, they're always playing gigs. Columbus, Ohio, all these cities, they all have some kind of music scene. How big or small are they? I don't know. I only live in Los Angeles. I've only ever lived here. So I would say you could ask me about this place and the scene and how it's changed over the years. But if you want to be that kind of freelance musician, you need to be in a place where there's the action. If you're an independent artist, you can put your stuff up online for streaming and download. It can reach the world. You don't have to necessarily be in a place. It's amazing how so many independent artists, they were able to be found by people just from being online. I think Lorde is one of them, Lorde, her. She's from New Zealand. And I believe she got discovered down there somehow, but her music really, it spoke. It reached a lot of people. She didn't have to be in any like major music mecca. Do I like gummy bears? No, I really don't like those. They stick in your teeth. My favorite Queen song, there's so many. I mean, that's a band. You want to get good at learning how to learn songs well. Listen to and learn Queen songs. None of them are conventional in their arrangements, verse, chorus, pre-chorus, all that. There's just so many great songs by Queen, like the hits, the deep cuts, love them. Let's see, who else do we have here? I'm glad I can keep you company as you drive across Ireland, Rachel. My pleasure. Any other Vampires gigs in Europe, or if we're doing Christmas Pudding again? Christmas Pudding is Alice's charity event to benefit Solid Rock. That's Alice and Cheryl Cooper's foundation for kids with the arts, music, dance, and there's a benefit every December. We've played that a couple of times with the Vampires. Maybe we will again this year. I don't know. Let's see. What do we got here? We have... Hope to see you soon in Canada, Saskatchewan. Oh, yeah, we've played there lots. Yeah, Pete Thorne, he did give me a nice promo plug yesterday or the day before. He's a guy that is really just, he is the ultimate sort of journeyman guitar player. He's super diverse, plays so many different styles. I actually went live with him on his YouTube channel the other day, and he was nice enough to promote my channel. That's what we do. YouTubers, they kind of help each other out. I want to get him on here to do a live chat. He's just full of great information, not just for guitar players, but musicians in general. He does a live stream on Sundays. He's like opposite me right now, but that's all right. He was so cool to promote me, even though I overlap with his just a little bit. And he's played with Chris Cornell, Melissa Etheridge, Don Henley. We were talking about a lot of these gigs and stories the other day. And that's one of the things that kind of inspired me to want to do this. It's like, okay, we're on a gig. I'm thinking like maybe my residency gig in Los Angeles, Lucky Strike. We do sound check. And then between the end of sound check and the beginning of the show, well, that's like 3 or 4 hours. We're usually not going home because that would be just too much LA traffic at the wrong time. So we're chilling in the green room, the dressing room. We're eating. We're talking. We're talking about gigs, stories, the records that we love, why we love them, the songs that we've learned, who got this gig, who lost this gig because they screwed up, just stories. And it makes me go, what if this was like actually heard by people that would be like friends, fans, whatever? It'd be pretty cool to do that. Now, maybe I'll tell some stories and I'll leave out certain names. I'll maybe end up saying a lot of things like, this guitar player who shall not be named did this on a gig and it made them lose the gig. I mean, I got to be careful about that, but I really think there's a lot of value in bringing on other musicians to a thing like this and having us discuss things back and forth. Just last night, this happened by accident. I was pulling in, getting home from my gig in Hollywood, and I opened up Instagram on my phone, and my buddy Jordan Burns was live on Instagram. Jordan is a killer, very, very influential punk drummer who kind of created his own thing. For about 20, 25 years, he was in the band Strung Out. And they were one of the first LA punk bands to have this sound where they're mixing it with metal. He had double bass in there, and just a lot of signature Jordan Burns grooves and licks. Really important part of the sound of that band. And he was like managing the band and tour managing, just all these things I would never want to do because that's such a big job to be a manager and then also to be the drummer. But we got on live. Like, I logged on to his live video, and then I put in that request to be added to make it a dual live stream. And we sat there for, I don't know, maybe a half hour talking back and forth about different things, influences. We took questions. It was cool. So who else is in the chat? Going over for, we'll see you in the UK tour in October. Yeah, we have a bunch of UK dates announced. We've got London, Manchester, Birmingham, I think, a lot of great places coming up. That's the late summer, early fall tour. We'll be in Germany. Yeah, we've got a lot. I saw a bunch of German dates coming up. Berlin, and maybe like 5 or 6 of them. Metallica or Megadeth. Tough call. Why does it have to be one or the other? Is this a thing? You're only in one camp, and if you're in that one camp, you don't like the other band? They're both great. They've both had a lot of songs that have influenced people to pick up guitars and drums. And Dave Mustaine, James Hetfield, they were both in the same band at one time. Who else do we have here? Any tips on getting around the toms with consistent accuracy? Yeah, motion exercises. A lot of times people think getting around the toms, if you're right-handed, you're going from left to right, from high tom to low tom. That's good. That's important. I would also think about going from right to left. And if you can't do something slow and evenly, you're not going to be able to do it fast and evenly. That's just for any musician. How are you going to be able to do that? How are you going to be able to play with any speed or dexterity if first you can't play it at a slow, medium tempo? It's like trying to run before you can even walk. So I would think about it in those terms. I don't have any toms except a floor tom on this kit back here. But yeah, you just work on things. You start slow. You can get around the toms. I suspect that you want to do it at a faster and faster tempo. It's all about the metronome. You're going to be able to keep track of your tempos, how fast you can do something, and how slow you can do it. People forget about that a lot. Working on your slow tempos. That's something You have to practice every day. Slow is what makes certain drummers just choke. Like if you got to go into the studio and record a ballad or even a mid-tempo song, let's say, like a mid-tempo tune that has some syncopation, if you don't practice that stuff and play along to certain records that have that kind of feel and learn songs like that, if you suddenly get thrown into a situation where you have to do that kind of song, you're going to feel awkward and uncomfortable, because if you're just a drummer working on speed, faster technique, all of a sudden you're playing a ballad at 60 BPM, it's going to be weird. There's going to be a lot of space between the notes, and you may not be used to that. That's what this is. Drummers don't just play notes. We create space, and we give structure and symmetry to that space using grace notes and dynamics. But you've got to be able to do it all tempo-wise. I think about, like, if there's a certain idea I'm working on, it could be a new lick, a new pattern. Well, what's the tempo range I could play it at? You know, maybe it's between 105 BPM and 125 BPM. I think about it sometimes in those terms. So how about a Nashville Goon Squad show? We might have a day off. I saw we had a Nashville date coming up, so maybe that's in the works. Dan Gillen or Gabe Padilla? That's Rich Aronin. Boy, what a tough question. Rich Aronin is a guy I was in high school drumline with. I was a freshman. He was a junior at the time. He got me in trouble a lot because he would make me laugh, and then the band director, he would kick me out of the room for laughing, and Rich would laugh that I got kicked out, and then Rich would get kicked out. But between Gabe and Dan, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. Maybe if they jump in on the chat, whoever jumps in the chat first, I'll just pick them, you know. But good times in marching band in high school. I'll see if I can find some old pictures of that and post that on social media. Who else? Rock Meets Classic. It's not a tour I'm a part of, but I know Alice has done that at least once. That's the thing he did in Germany with the big orchestra, playing like Poison and Schools Out. It looked like a great time. What's your opinion on Zoltan Chaney's drumming style? Well, if you guys don't know Zoltan Chaney, you got to check him out on YouTube. He's Vince Neil's and Slaughter's drummer. And basically the band that backs up Vince Neil and Slaughter, it's the same band. It's Zoltan, it's Dana Strum, and it's Jeff Blando. And I went to the Vince Neil show recently at the Canyon Club out here in Los Angeles, and said hey to Zoltan and Vince and the guys before the show. And Zoltan is telling me he doesn't warm up. I went, you got to be kidding me. I mean, look, I'm not even going to describe it. You just got to log on to YouTube and type his name in. The guy's body is like made of rubber. I don't know, but he's definitely a showman. It's something to see. He's a great dude, good buddy, and he's been on that gig a long time. I think he said 10, 11 years, something like that. He's doing good stuff. Who else? Let's see who else is. Scroll down the chat here. Have I ever played guitar? Not yet, but I always say, you never know. Never say never. Can you touch on the versatility and importance of rudiments, finesse, dynamics, and overall hand technique? Colaiuta, Weckl, Lang, Donati, Bissonette, and Steve Smith, for example, and how it benefited you. Yeah, well, they're mentioning a lot of household name drummers. You mentioned Greg Bissonette in there. Greg is my mentor. I was Greg's student when I was 18, 19 years old. At the time, Greg was playing for David Lee Roth. But when he was in town, he was teaching on Saturdays. And he was doing group lessons. It was like 2, 3, 4 people at a time. And me and one of my best friends, Mike Dubin, we were in one of these groups of 3 people. And every Saturday, we'd get up. We were going to Cal State Northridge. And the place that Greg was teaching was basically like right across the street. And we'd wake up all like maybe hungover Saturday morning, you know, and we'd drive across the street to go to a drum lesson with Greg. And that was just, it was invaluable. But yeah, the importance of rudiments. Look, rudiments in a way are like, it's the language of drumming. And the first rudiment you learn usually is a single stroke. basically right, left, right, left, right, left. And then you learn a double stroke, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Now, some old school drummers will tell you that there is only two rudiments, a single stroke and a double stroke, because just about every other rudiment are combinations of those. Like a paradiddle is two singles and a double. So it's going to alternate in that case. If you're playing right, left, right, right, and then you go on left, right, left, left, well, that's usually the third rudiment people learn. Right, left, right, left, left. And you make things out of these rudiments. You come up with ideas. A lot of kids, they want to ask, like, why do I got to learn my rudiments? It's boring. I just want to rip on the drums. And I say, no, but this is what's going to help you to rip on the drums, is learning rudiments. And then you start to develop your favorite rudiments. Like, I love the paradiddle diddle. I think that's my favorite. And then my second favorite would be the 6-stroke roll. And my third favorite would be the parapadiddle, which is not an official name as far as I know, but I gave it that name because it needs a name. That is right, left, right, left, right, left, left. 5 notes. Right, left, left. Parapadiddle, parapadiddle. You can do a lot with that. And again, they're all made up of single strokes and double strokes. So this is what's going to lead you to develop a sound on the drums. You experiment with different rudiments, voicing them around the kit. Voicing means taking a pattern, and instead of just playing it on the snare drum, one surface, you're moving it around the drums, the toms, the cymbals. You'll hopefully stumble on some cool ideas. And if you know your rudiments pretty well, when you hear another drummer play a lick, you might say, oh, well, you know what? That was cool. I could hear what he's doing. That was a double paradiddle, but played like this. You could hear it on a record or seeing someone play live. It helps you. It develops your ear a lot better. So that's my commercial for learning your rudiments. It's not that bad. Some kids treat it like having to eat their vegetables. No, I actually liked it as a kid. I liked working on my rudiments. So get on that. Let's see, who else? Led Zeppelin or Queen? Why are you guys asking me to choose one over the other? Come on. Queen, that was one of the first records I ever bought. Like, I think their greatest hits could have been the third or fourth record I ever bought. But then Led Zeppelin, the first record from them was Song Remains the Same, the soundtrack to the movie, live record, drum solo, Moby Dick. I was hooked right away. I will not choose one over the other. I refuse to do that. Who else? Do you ever have the need for an agent or manager to get more major gigs? That's from Jerome. There has been a couple of times where I've had somebody like that, but the majority of the time in my career, I haven't had any manager type person. You got to be careful about that. You have to get somebody, if they're going to be your manager, they have to be somebody that knows more than you do about the business, has more connections than you do, has more relationships with the right kind of people. Otherwise, you're giving somebody 15, 20% of your earnings for no real good reason. So as a band, sure, a band can have a manager, but I think the same thing applies. You got to have somebody that's really worth their weight. I've known of managers that they just do some basic day-to-day activities, but they're not really bringing anything to the table as far as advancing a band to a next step or getting on a tour that would be something that brings the band in front of more fans than who they already have. You really have to be careful about who you're going to hire to represent you as an individual or as a band. Do you ever have, that's the same question. What's the biggest gig you've ever played? Biggest in number of people? I think that's probably the Wacken Festival in Germany. We've done that twice with Alice. I think both times it's been about 75,000 people, somewhere between 70 and 80,000. And that's actually the DVD that we did. It was filmed back in 2013. I think it came out in 2014. And there's a drum solo clip from that DVD that's floating around on YouTube and Facebook. But yeah, that DVD is literally one of the biggest shows I've ever played. And, it's great. It's amazing. You play for like 20,000 people. It's like, whoa, yeah, that's huge. But like 75,000, you're up there playing. It's like, whoa, there's a lot of people out there. Like you can't see where the crowd of people ends. It's truly a sea of people. It's a pretty amazing thing. And we've gotten some pretty good photos from some of those gigs that I'm proud to display. It's like, wow, we did it. But you know what? I still like playing the tiny venues. I like playing the Baked Potato here in Los Angeles. That place is the size of a big living room. I think capacity for that place is less than 100 people. It doesn't matter whether it's 10 or 10,000, 100,000 people. You play how you play, and you put 100% into every note. I can't let that question go without mentioning that. It's amazing to play for huge crowds, but I'm going to enjoy it no matter what. So who else? A lot of questions today. This is great, guys. I really appreciate it. And if I miss it today, there's always next week. Fastest paradiddle in the San Fernando Valley. That's Rich again, my marching band buddy. I guess when I first went to meet up with the drumline guys, I was a prospective drumline guy, kid. This is before the school year started. It was right before band camp started. Yes, we had band camp. They had us all meet at Rich's house. I remember this. And we got on the drum set one at a time. And one of the guys was kind of quizzing us, or me at least, on certain rudiments. How's your paradiddle? I played a paradiddle. I guess I played one kind of fast. I don't know. But it's still this thing that gets talked about all these years later. I wouldn't worry about speed so much as playing it fluidly and being able to move it around the drums. It's important to have speed on these things, but don't sacrifice everything else for that. But yeah, that's a funny, good memory. I hear about that paradiddle to this day. They're never going to let me forget about that. Yeah. Public service announcement. Learn your rudiments. That's a good way to put it. That's from Glen Sobel, Italia. Very nice. Has a fan page on Instagram and I think Twitter as well. And hopefully we'll see you very soon. I think we have an Italian date coming up. Do we have a show in Italy coming up later this year? Did I see something with Alice? I hope so. I love going to Italy. I really fell in love with that country when I played with Vasco Rossi back in 2010. This was one of those things where it was a last-minute gig. I had to fill in for Matt Logg, great LA drummer. Vasco Rossi always has American drummers, and it was a situation where Matt had an injury and I had to come in and fill in last minute, learn the whole set in like 3 days and fly out. And I ended up finishing out the last 5 weeks of the tour. And it was amazing. The Italian rock fans, boy, they're great. They're loud. Who else? Do I miss my koala friend? You're probably talking about that picture of us holding koalas at the Brisbane Zoo back in 2017. That was cool. Got to hold koala bears. And boy, were we tired that day. That Australian run was nuts because it was like 3 shows in a row, 3 in a row. And what's tough about that is every day is a show and a flight. We have to go to the airport and check in and fly to the next city, maybe an hour or two, and then get our bags and maybe go to the hotel, try to grab like an hour nap, and then go straight to sound check and do the show 3 days in a row. But somehow we had time one day to hit up the Brisbane Zoo and meet the koalas and meet the kangaroos. That was great. That picture is floated around a lot online. That's cool. How did I get the Alice gig? Well, how does any gig happen? You got to know somebody on the inside. That helps. You can do a audition where it's sort of a cattle call, but nobody likes those. I don't like them. The kind of audition where, well, I've done those before where you show up and maybe the band, or it could be just an individual artist. They're looking for drums, guitar, bass, keyboards, and you show up. This is a Los Angeles thing. You show up in an audition like that, and it's like, oh, hey, what's up, everybody I know, every musician in Los Angeles, how you guys doing? And I just don't know how you pick somebody out of that. I've been on the other end where I've been in a band auditioning guitarists and bassists where there's 2 long days of playing with people and there's callbacks. That's crazy. But the Alice gig happened. Tommy Hendrickson, known him forever. And there was a recording session that Alice was doing in Nashville. This is back in 2010. And I didn't meet Alice on this session, but what we were doing was doing re-records. And what is that? We were doing exact note for note renditions of a few of the hits, like School's Out and No More Mr. Nice Guy, those kind of things. And then Alice was re-singing it. And the question is why? Why do that? Because when a movie or a video game or a TV show commercial wants a certain hit from a band, well, they got to either go to the original record label, like the rights holders to that master recording, which means that that label is going to now have a piece of that. It's not just going to be the artist that makes the money off of that, but now the label is going to have a piece of it. And sometimes it's this defunct record label. It doesn't exist anymore. There's a lot of red tape to go through to get the rights to use that master recording. So at some point, some band, some artist, I don't know who it was, maybe somebody out there does, somebody said, hey, you know what? Let's just re-record these songs. We got all the same people in the band. We know how to get the same sounds and guitar tones, drum sounds. Let's just do it ourselves. And then we own that master recording and we can license it out and not worry about our former record label from 30 years ago. So we did this, and they brought in Bob Ezrin, the original producer in this case. And it was a blast. It was recreating the 70s in a way with the drum sounds and guitar tones. It was a session with Reb Beach on guitar and Greg Smith on bass, both Alice alumni. And I had to make note-for-note transcriptions of all these songs, do the Neil Smith feel and his drum parts. And there was one song, we did Welcome to My Nightmare, which is Whitey Glenn on drums, total different feel, great session player. And that led to the tour a year later. Bob Ezrin was asked to produce the show, and he suggested that Tommy and I be a part of the live band, as well as Steve Hunter, who played on a lot of the original Alice Cooper hits like School's Out, and he played with Peter Gabriel. He's on Salisbury Hill, and he played with Lou Reed. That guy was in the Alice Cooper band with Tommy and I and everybody when I first started in 2011. Played on these legendary recordings. Steve Hunter is the intro guitar solo on Aerosmith's Train Kept a Rollin'. But I'm getting off topic. Bob suggested Tommy and I for the band. Alice knew Tommy because he'd worked with him in Nashville with Bob. But regarding me, Alice said, okay, well, I heard him. I sung over this drummer's tracks. He obviously knows the vibe of the material, but I need to see this drummer. I need to see him. My drummer has to be flashy. So I guess what Tommy did is he pulled up some YouTube video of me doing something. I don't know if I was doing some of this stuff, whatever, but that made Alice say, like, okay, that's the guy. Tommy had to vouch for my character. This is an important thing with getting gigs. It's not just about how you play. That's maybe 50% of it. You have to be a good hang. Your personality has to fit well with all the rest of the band, the artists you're playing for. That's something we can definitely discuss a lot more. But Tommy called me from the studio after he showed Alice whatever the YouTube thing was, and it was 2 hours later in Nashville, so I was still asleep here in LA. And typical Tommy, you know, he's like, yo, man, I'm here with Mr. Cooper, and you want to do this gig? We're heading out in May. You want to do this? And I was half asleep. I went, yeah, man, let's do it. He went, all right, you're in. Click. And that was basically it. And I didn't meet Alice until the first day of rehearsal. It's weird, right? Like, how you doing? I'm your new drummer. And we got the show together and been here ever since. On April 30th, that will be exactly 8 years that I've been with Coop. I consider it April 30th because that was the day I flew to Nashville to start rehearsals. That's the first day I was officially Alice's drummer. So it's been great. I can't believe it. It's flown by like that. What about Germany? Do you like being there too? Of course. Oh, Munich, Berlin, great cities. We had some really cool shows in Germany last June with the Vampires. Hey, Vic Chalfant, how you doing? Amazing photographer. He's taken some killer live shots of us. Love Vic's work. Do you prefer Sobel Sunday or Wednesday Glenn's Day? Well, you're the guy I think that came up with hashtag Wednesday Glenn's Day on Instagram. I think you should stick with that. I just came up with Sobel Sunday the other day. I was thinking, well, what do I title this? And I don't know, it just came to me. Klaus Brodesser, what's up, man? Klaus, yeah, he's talking about Parade of Losers.